I'm Parry Trunick. I'm an associate editor with Inbound Logistics Magazine. I'm going to be moderating this session today. I have a few comments, not very much here because I don't want to take a lot of time from our panelists. We're going to move through the panel. Each of the presenters will take about 10 minutes to lay some background, and then we'll move into a Q&A session. We'll get a motion from the back when to cut off. We want to be on time because I don't want you to be late for lunch. That never puts you in good stead when it comes to the evaluations afterwards when people are late for lunch. So if any of you were here on Tuesday for the Metro Atlanta Chamber Summit, there were some supply chain awards and a lot of good discussion, a panel going on there. One of the things I found interesting was they did a cell phone-based vote on how the people who were in attendance felt that the economy was going. And the good news is that a slight majority, slightly over half of the people felt that the economy was moving in a good direction. So a little bit of positive news coming out of that. If that's the case, we may also be looking at increased volumes in the transportation sector, which is a good thing, but it also carries a number of challenges, and we'll hear about some of those challenges today in this panel discussion and throughout the day in the other panels that you're attending. We have some issues that are being faced by various companies that have reduced their investment, and as their volumes increase, they'll be facing some challenges trying to keep up with that and quickly allocate some effort towards their own infrastructure. We'll hear from our panelists that for the most part they have continued to take the opportunity to invest in infrastructure and develop their capabilities in preparation for the growth that we all know would eventually come back. Another challenge we have is that despite the high unemployment rates, we're faced with issues trying to find drivers and workers in a lot of the logistics functions. So we've got that challenge between infrastructure and labor workforce issues. We're going to be a bit constrained as we see this positive economy that we heard yesterday that the business leaders that were at the previous luncheon say that is coming. So with that, I want to get to the panel. Our first speaker is Steve Van Kirk, Senior Vice President of Intermodal and Commercial Management with Schneider National. I'll turn it over to him.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me to join you today. And what I'd like to do is start off by talking to you briefly about Schneider National. And I think many of you are probably familiar with our company. It started in 1935 when our founder sold a family car and bought a truck. Since then, things have gone much, much better. And as of this point, you can see that we're one of the largest North American transportation providers. And we have three primary divisions. Our core truckload legacy division, which includes services such as long haul, regional, expedited, dedicated, and bulk. Intermodal, which I work in, which really started up when we had trailers that we felt we could move some more loads, and we found our friends at the railroads that allowed us to do that, and then kind of an ad hoc basis, we started up a trailer and flat car operation, which is expanded into a full-up intermodal container and flat car intermodal division right now at Schneider. And then we have a logistics division, which includes a variety of services running from supply chain management to transloading, transportation management, or brokerage. Now, when we think about intermodal is a sizable part of Schneider's business. We really look at basically two basic operating models that you can utilize. One, which is a non-asset-based model using rail-owned equipment, and also using primarily third-party dray providers. And what we use, which we call an asset-based model. And it's based upon us basically owning all of our own containers and having about 90% of our drays executed with Orange company power and company drivers. And really, the advantage we think that brings is summed up in one word. It's called control. In terms of services, we focus upon a premium door-to-door service solution The services that we provide, run the gauntlet from Transcon to Eastern Regional, which is I'll talk more about further on, Western Regional. We run a dedicated train between Kansas City, Missouri, and Marion, Ohio, outside of Columbus, and we use that to get both to and from Mexico and also the West Coast. We have launched cross-border services going in and out of both Mexico and Canada, which have been part of our fastest-growing pieces of our business. Now, Parry had asked me to talk about basically two things besides the company overview. One is what's going well from an intermodal standpoint. And intermodal is, I think, really demonstrates sustainable success. And it's a case where it's reliable, it costs less, and it's fuel efficient. And that's a great value proposition, I think, for almost any shipper that's trying to find a reliable means of servicing their supply chain in a cost-effective manner. Marketplace's acceptance of intermodal is really, really accelerated. About 15 years ago, I was working for a shipper, and I got to go down to a plant in Louisiana and tell them that we're going to do intermodal. And I'll just tell you, I was greeted with enthusiasm, but they really didn't like my idea. And the good news is, as service has improved, the reliability of intermodal has become more accepted. And I think most shippers are very, very willing to go out there and look for the opportunities to do conversion where it makes sense. There's also been strong service levels, and that's led to increased customer confidence. And a lot of the increased service levels have been driven by the railroads. And I know Bill Clement will be speaking after me, but the CSX, who's our primary provider in the East, has had extremely strong service results. And that's helped us drive confidence with our customers that we can deliver the loads on time as they expect. As there's been an increased focus and comfort level with the service levels provided by intermodal, more customers are willing to consider delivering directly to a customer. A decade ago, if you're talking about intermodal, many customers would say, yeah, I use intermodal, but I'll only use it to deliver either an interplant or intermill load, something that I have a little more flex if something doesn't go right from a service perspective. And as the service level has improved and truckload capacity has tightened up, there's a much greater level of willingness of shippers to look at having a delivery directly into their ultimate customer. Infrastructure investments, I think, have really been a real positive, and they've supported both high service levels and also expanded service offerings. I mentioned about our service going to and from Mexico, and so we've been able to go in and use the services that have been developed through the Kansas City Southern and others, and the infrastructure they've built up to provide new service offerings that we couldn't have provided 4 or 5 years ago. Short length haul conversion from truckload, I think, is going to be probably one of the key themes you're going to be seeing going on for an extended period of time, and that's driven by, I think, fundamentally the lack of driver capacity. And then the final thing I'd call out in terms of success is that there's really been an acceleration of nearshoring. And by that, that's really going down into places like Mexico, areas like San Luis Potosí, which is north of Mexico City. You see a lot of companies which are building plants or expanding plants, and a lot of the production that used to occur in East Asia is starting to shift back into Mexico. And for that reason, we've just seen a tremendous amount of growth in our Mexico direct service offering, and the same thing with Canada, although it's not driven by nearshoring. All right, areas of concern. One of the things that concerns me is I think there's many shippers who are engaged in what I'll call a commoditization exercise of intermodal services, and it really comes down to what's value. And the example I always use is I'm a long-term Army guy before I got out and found my way into the world of transportation. And where I fundamentally learned about value was when I was a young parachute infantry officer, and I went up to a guy who was a private, he was a jump master, checking his equipment off before a jump. He was a little full of himself, and as I kind of finished checking his equipment and clipped his static line on his front, I said, "Do you realize that parachute was provided by a low-cost government bidder?" And walked away. His eyes were just big and round. And that to me, sums up value. Is sometimes there's more than just the price that represents whether you should make a choice to use a service or not. And I think that there's things offered through an asset-based intermodal model that cause positive differentiation that could cause somebody to say there's value that's provided by virtue of paying a higher price point than maybe some other service options which might be out there. One thing linked with that is I've seen kind of a change over the years. When I worked at a major shipper, I was basically in transportation operations for a part of my career, and we had both procurement accountabilities and also operational accountabilities. Many shippers have started to split apart their procurement and their operational groups, and because of that, you've seen I'll call it more of kind of commodity procurement tactics with reverse line auctions and other things that result in driving the prices down very, very hard, but ultimately it doesn't necessarily result in the bid holding together in terms of the capacity they thought they were lining up being available for them. And I think that's a point of concern. the other thing I will unashamedly say is that, we're in the business of making money and having a profit. And I think you want us to do that because you want us to go out there and reinvest in our business and buy more trucks and buy more containers and provide the capacity that you need. 2009 was an ugly year for many of us in transportation, and that included us. And when 2010 rolled around, many of you may remember, there was a little bit of a capacity scare going on. And people would come up to me and say, well, how many containers are you buying this year? And the answer was none. And the reason we weren't buying any is because the prices in 2009 didn't justify a further investment in the business. And so I think that's important if you're a shipper and you're procuring transportation to just understand there's got to be enough profit, it's got to be at reinvestable returns to allow us to have the capacity that you need to move your freight to your customers. Other areas of concern, fuel costs. And what I'll start off by saying is the price of fuel has gone really, really high. I made the mistake of buying a diesel automobile recently. As back in 2009, it seemed really like a good idea back then. As diesel prices are hovering around $4 a gallon, it's not such a great idea. And so what's happening is, the price of fuel surcharges have gone up for many shippers. It's a real cost. It impacts your bottom line. And so because of that, many shippers are responding to it. What I would say is that I think it's important to remember the purpose of a fuel program. And it's to ultimately, provide, basically confidence to the service provider that fuel price goes up, there's a price point that they'll allow to be able to cover the incremental costs they gain by increasing fuel. And unfortunately, I've seen an increasing amount of shippers who are taking tactics such as going to a substandard program, which doesn't allow us to fully recover our fuel costs if prices go up, or going as far as say, I'd like to commit to a flat fuel price for 12 months, and that's something that just we're simply not willing to do. Driver availability, another area of concern. And there's a driver shortage underway. I don't think I'd exaggerate to call it a driver crisis, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. And you hear about that primarily with over-the-road truckload drivers, but also applies to intermodal. And again, I think as time goes on and the driver capacity crunch gets worse and worse, I think you just need to understand that drivers are an important part of making an intermodal move, get completed or initiate on time the way everybody wants to. And we need to be understanding how do we value a driver's time. And I think that's the question I would ask if you're a shipper is do you, not just, talking about it, but in terms of the actions you take, do you go out there and value a driver's time? Because right now, I'll tell you that when I'm looking at pricing and improving it, protecting our driver's time is probably one of the top priorities that I'm concerned with. The final thing that I'll talk about is I'll call it the misconception of free time. And I understand that a lot of shippers don't like surprises, and surprises are sometimes defined as having accessorial charges coming through. And so, the conversation goes, I like X number of days free for a box, or I like X number of hours free for a driver. And the thing I'll tell you is we call it free to make you feel good. It's not really free. And so I think, if you tie into the topic of, driver availability and using drivers efficiently, if you start talking about driver free time other than something along the line of, say, 2 hours on loading or loading time, at that point, guys like me are going to start pricing in, kind of what I'll call the risk premium. And ultimately, if you want to be competitive, my recommendation is to be in a position where you would have drivers being viewed as being a very valuable resource, and that ultimately, if you're using more of a driver's time, you pay for it. If you don't, we all don't build that into your rate structure. Okay, I'll turn it over to Parry.
I found it interesting your comment about the growing acceptance of intermodal over. With the improvement of in service. And it was a number of years ago here in this very building when J.B. Hunt, J.B. himself actually made the announcement that J.B. Hunt would be launching an intermodal service. And I remember the shock that went through the industry as people, how could they do it? You promise high service, and you're going to work with the railroads. So there's been some very, very dramatic improvement since then in the service levels that the railroads have been providing in order to allow this intermodal capability to grow. Quick poll, how many of you in the audience are using intermodal services today? Okay, how many of you 5 years ago were not, that are using intermodal today, how many of you 5 years ago were not doing nearly as much intermodal as you are today? 10 years ago? So it's been a recent development. Looking out, there are far more intermodal users in this group today than there were even just a few years ago.
So what I'm gonna, you know what was great about, I didn't hear a word you said, Steve, from sitting right there. So if I conflict with anything he said, there's some kind of sound issue right in that spot. I'm going to try not to give you a CSX commercial, but I can't help myself. I'm just going to kind of give you a view of how CSX sees our intermodal line of business and, you know, how it fits in and how we're embracing it to help our customers and help our company. So intermodal is, I like to think it's the only thing we do at CSX, but obviously we do a lot of other things that actually make quite a bit of other money. Our coal business, obviously a big part. And if you think about all the other non-intermodal lines of business, it's really kind of your bulk commodities by and large that are moving really from the suppliers to the plants to the manufacturers, et cetera. When you migrate down the supply chain to intermodal, you're looking much more at kind of finished products, consumer goods, et cetera. And, you know, we've just seen this grow and grow and grow over the last, frankly, about 30 years now to where it's over a third of our volume for CSX. And when we think about intermodal, of course, we try to segment the business. Simply stated, we really just think in terms of there's international import-export business, and then there's your domestic business, right? And that's the simplest term. And of course, the domestic business has a lot of different facets to it. We have our premium, you know, truckload LTL business. We do have a door-to-door business where we fill some gaps in our network by selling that. But by and large, it's international and it's domestic. And it's the domestic business that we see as an extremely strong secular trend over the past 5 or 6 years and as far as we can see into the future. The international business, of course, comes with some cyclicality, depending on what the American consumer is doing. We just had a giant dose of that a few years ago, what happens when people stop buying things here. But on the domestic side, that's not true. What you saw, even through the recession, was continued growth of the domestic product, which is just sheer highway to rail conversion, and we think that's a great opportunity. Matter of fact, most of Steve's, what I did see on the slide, most of his concerns, I'm all for. I mean, I'm all for driver shortages and high fuel costs and all those things. So, you know, it's a different view of the landscape here. And this is a big one. I usually wouldn't go anywhere near the fuel issue, but I think just this is a strong trend that's here to stay. High fuel costs and the things around emissions are very, very pro-intermodal. And now what we see out there in the community is shippers, and this is, I think, a very good thing. It's not just our sales channels going and pushing the intermodal product, it's shippers demanding more intermodal. So it's really gone from a nice-to-have to a must-have. And again, that's a very good thing. This is a big part of it. There's a long list of other things other than the sustainability issue that are pro-intermodal. Driver insurance, you know, you name it, the highway infrastructure, all those things point you toward more intermodal. If you're not using more intermodal, it's you know, see me after the presentation here and I'll get you involved. Okay, so not just CSX, all the railroads are investing in their intermodal product, and those investments come in terms of double stack clearances to make sure that these systems are built as efficiently as possible. More capacity in frankly every city we could reach in North America, expanding current terminals. So just this is kind of a laundry list, but we've opened up a new terminal in Montreal. Our railroad actually runs right up into just south of Montreal. Big, 7th largest market in North America, just as a kind of a FYI to the side. And it's amazing that when you open a new intermodal terminal, the demand, it just immediately begins to fill up with freight, and we consider that a good thing. It allows us to continue those investments. We're clearing our railroad into New England. We have a very strong single-line product going into New England. The one drawback for us has been that it wasn't stack cleared. We're clearing those bridges, tunnels, et cetera, as we speak. It'll be done at the end of this year, and that, again, will drive more and more freight, we believe, off the highway onto the railroad. Ohio Valley, we had our marketing department did an exhaustive study and figured out that everybody was moving to the southeast, and that's where all the freight was going to be, and we needed to get on board as soon as possible. And then, of course, the Ohio Valley immediately exploded, and we have more business than we know what to do with. And the entire Ohio Valley, Michigan, et cetera, all the states that we thought were struggling are doing well, so we continue to add capacity there. One of our big projects called the National Gateway. It's really to fill a gap in our network between the mid-Atlantic ports and the Ohio Valley, Chicago. It's an ongoing project, $840+ million. We're well on our way to completing that project. And the keystone of it is a new facility we built in Northwest Ohio, which is, we think, kind of a next generation intermodal facility where we're actually doing transload, rail-to-rail transloads with superstructure cranes that allow us to kind of quickly expedite shipments in a way that we've never done in the past. And we've had it open now for almost a year, and it's just doing absolutely fantastic. And of course, down here in Florida, we're headquartered in Jacksonville. We worked on a deal with the state of Florida, and we're going to open a new facility just a little south of Orlando in Winter Haven. And again, the intent there is just to provide long-term capacity for intermodal shipments. So something that we're doing a little different today than we've done in the past is getting more and more directly involved with shippers. And the reason for that is so we can truly understand their needs, not necessarily through some of our great partners like Schneider and Werner here and UPS, but so we can design our products and design our services to make sure that they meet those final shipper needs. So we do this in coordination with our intermediaries, and frankly, we're in a position now where shippers can just give us their entire book of business, and then we can quickly translate that into, okay, what should move intermodal across the nation, and frankly in Mexico and Canada, and then of course, how much of that do you need to put on CSX as quickly as possible. So summing up, and this is kind of the big CSX pitch, you've seen our commercials. I will tell you this, where I think intermodal's heading, and I would speak for all the railroads. The intermodal product is as reliable today as it's ever been. Everybody's striving for service reliability. We're kind of in a really good spot right now, but we've seen that across the board. The green thing is not a fad. I feel like it took a little hiatus there in 2009 when everybody was trying to figure out how to pay their mortgage. They weren't so fixated on green, but it's back very strong. It's, again, a long-term trend. Intermodal fits that. But at the end of the day, all of us, and particularly what we're trying to do at CSX, is to make the product valuable for shippers. So the choice is easy, right? We have this much of the freight that's moving in North America compared to the highway. But there is more and more, as this product gets more and more valuable, you'll see more and more of the freight shift off the highway and onto the railroads. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Bill. You graphically demonstrated exactly why we've seen intermodal growth recently. The railroads delivered right on time. So now we are our next speaker is Matt Parry from Werner, and let's see, very bottom one. Okay, we'll get queued up here. Oops, did I miss it? Or oh, this is it. Okay, good. Okay, you're on.
Well, I'd like to start by thanking everybody for the opportunity to come down to Atlanta from Omaha, Nebraska, tell you a little bit about Werner Enterprises. So I'll start with a little bit of a commercial, then I will do my best to land the plane with both concerns and what seems to be working from our perspective on the intermodal side. I'll start with just giving a little bit of an introduction for those that don't know much about Werner Enterprises. Werner's a $2 billion supply chain provider based out of Omaha, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. We support our solutions with 7,300 trucks on the road and over 23,000 trailers, and then support that with strategic alliance carriers with over 8,500 alliance carriers. Our goal is to deliver supply chain solutions both in North America but across the globe for our customers. We look at at that Werner Enterprises solution with really 4 components. First being freight management. From a freight management standpoint, we really look for the sustainable value proposition with our customers. And that's oftentimes not in the up and down rate environment as it is in really sustainable value. And that's trying to help our customers with shipment optimization, whether that's cube or whether that's consolidation. Start there, because the most green thing we can do is have less shipments. Secondly, would be the movement aspect of our business, which is probably what we're most known for. Whether it's the truck or intermodal or plane, we remain mode neutral and send the freight on whatever the most efficient mode is, on our asset or on a non-asset. The ability to implement that solution globally is, we think, key for our customers, with seamless visibility across the supply chain from Asia to the US. And ultimately, the technology to be easy to use, from a web-based TMS system to on-demand reporting and seamless integration. So that's a little bit about Werner Enterprises. One of the things that Bill just alluded to was the market share of intermodal and trucking. So this is a slide from the ATA, and what it represents is we are extremely bullish on intermodal. Intermodal is going to continue to grow rapidly, but at the end of the day, it's a small part of the market share of how goods get moved, with trucking being over 70%. If we take that 82% growth rate over the next 10 years and triple it, it still only puts rail at 3% of market share. So some of the concerns are, how do we make rail more user-friendly and more available to our customers? Some of the challenges that we're faced that were pointed out a little bit with the first two, Steve and Bill, was the driver market. The driver market is in crisis. Wages have been depressed over the last several years, and create an environment that makes it extremely difficult to attract and retain drivers to the market. And whether you're servicing over the road or whether you're servicing intermodal, a truck is going to pick it up and get it to a rail yard and deliver it, so trucks are essential in both modes. We've got plenty of government involvement with CSA and hours of service that are changing the environment that we work in and going to drive challenges across our customer supply chains. On the freight movement side, our vision is to create a multimodal, whether that's trailer or container solutions across North America. What we try to do is extend the reach of what the railroad can offer. And the illustration up here is really, how do we get the shippers that are outside of 250 or 300 miles from a railhead that traditionally have struggled to make an intermodal or container product work? How does a supplier like Werner Enterprises, with our vast network, try to bring intermodal to those customers? And the answer for us is in a multimodal facet, utilizing our trailers and still offering a value proposition to our customers. If the right mode is container, we certainly want to move our customers' freight in container, but really, how do we reach out and get more people moving intermodal? Conversion, over-the-road conversion is a process. It's not a decision made today based on your freight balance. We believe it's a long-term strategic process that we want to work through with our customers. We start at the optimization of the shipment. Again, the first and best solution is to try to ship one less than what the customer is doing today. Secondly is really understanding the expectations that customer has, whether it's transit or service expectations. It's truly understanding those so that you can make a very educated mode decision. That mode, whether it's container, trailer, or over the road, can be executed by any of your service providers, but certainly I'd offer Werner to be that solution for you. And then finally, that mode's great, but if you don't have the capacity and you struggle to make pickup or delivery, you haven't met that customer's expectations. So the execution side of it is key. In the top right corner, I showed a little bit of our network on how the over-the-road to rail conversion is working for us. As a large trucker, in 2008, almost 50% of our drivers operated in a long-haul environment. So not that long ago, that was half of what our trucks do. As we ended this year, almost 80% of our trucks operate in a regional environment or in designated lanes because the right mode for that long-haul freight is intermodal. And it's our desire to help our customers convert and utilize that. Finally, the Werner strategy. You know, today we're about 40% over the road, or dedicated, 35% over the road, and 26% logistics. Our goal would be to continue to get that into buckets of one-third in each of those portfolios. If you look today, in 2011, our logistics is the fastest growing part of our business with over 20% of our growth in logistics. So the embracing and the support of our customers to continue to evolve the intermodal is a key part of our success. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, we bounce back to railroads next with Mike McClellan from Norfolk Southern.
Well, Perry, thank you for that warm introduction. I am Mike McClellan. I run the intermodal, automotive, and trucking business at Norfolk Southern, and I'm really honored to be here today in Georgia. I mean, this is exciting, a standing room only crowd for an intermodal presentation. You know things are going to be good. Anyway, if you guys like maps and pictures, you're going to love my presentation. I'm going to drill down a little bit into Norfolk Southern in Georgia and talk a little bit about our position here and some of the things that are going on. Here is Norfolk Southern in Georgia. It's our third highest employment state here. We have our operating headquarters is here in Midtown. More importantly, though, our training center, where all of our crews and mechanical folks are trained, is in McDonough, just a little bit south of here. Last year, we hired 4,000 people. In the past 4 years, we've hired 12,000 people. Just about every single one of them comes to Atlanta, McDonough, and goes through our training center down there. Georgia is very, very important to the Norfolk Southern. More important than we think sometimes, or that we realize. And we have 5 intermodal facilities. We'll talk about that. I have automotive, so I'm going to talk a little bit intermodal in the broader sense, which is the movement of things between modes. Brunswick, down Colonel's Island, really important to us. You know, there's a lot of MLs, GLs, and soon C-Class Mercedes can be made in Alabama. They go out through Brunswick. Most of them in the world are made in Alabama. This port is really important to Norfolk Southern. About 60% of the production of Mercedes-Benz goes out through here to the world. We worked in 2006 to expand our presence here and have a great business and a great partnership with Georgia and Brunswick down in Colonel's Island. In Savannah, we heard a lot about Savannah from the governor this morning. It's important to him. It's important to us as well. We have a pretty strong position there at the Mason ICTF. We run about 4 trains a day in and out of this to support the Savannah port. We are in the putting the finishing touches on a Y. I don't know if you can see it there. It's that green line. You know, this area kind of looks upside down, but anyway, the green Y, it'll allow us to go directly from the Mason ICTF, our intermodal terminal there in the top, directly into Atlanta and points beyond. That'll be open in about 3 or 4 months, taking several hours and improving the reliability of our services in and out of Savannah. This is our Savannah map. We have a strong portfolio of international services as well as domestic services in and out of that market. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here in Atlanta. We have a lot of services in here. We have domestic and international container services. We have trailer services for a lot of customers, including UPS. And we have Triple Crown, which is our proprietary trucking line. And you can see the road railers up there in the top left-hand corner. Our facilities in Atlanta are numerous. We have 6 major rail-to-truck facilities. In the TBT, or the bulk distribution, we have 1 in Doraville. And we're going to open a second TBT down by East Point here in December. We also have our auto transloading facility in Pool Creek right outside the airport. And then we have 3 intermodal terminals here in town at Austell, downtown Inman, and Triple Crown as well down by East Point. Atlanta is a key hub. It has been a key hub for Norfolk Southern and its predecessors for a century and a half, more or less, and it continues to be that today. And you can see there are three major hubs on our railroad: Chicago, Harrisburg, and Atlanta. We move over 1 million intermodal loads through Inman right now. You can go down and see them every day. We grew over 15% through Atlanta in the Atlanta market. It just continues to amaze me, all the economic and shipping activity that happens here in our facilities in the Atlanta market. It's a big deal. It's really important for us. This is Inman. A century and a half ago, it used to be in the outskirts of Atlanta. Now it's in the middle of Atlanta. Not everybody's happy about that, but there it is. It's a huge facility. It was really our first intermodal hub where we do block swapping, load centering, and a lot of point-to-point services. Our newest facility, I say that, it was opened in the late 90s, is at Austell, Georgia, and it's about full as well. We have a lot of property here that we've sort of gathered up around it because we're bullish on what's happening in this market, and we're going to continue to expand this facility. This is where our expansion capabilities are. You look at all our services in and out of Atlanta, I mean, this is the real value we have here. We have about 25 daily services in and out of the Atlanta market for shippers to local points, as well as connections to every western rail ramp in the United States. We have a very extensive network here for the shippers in Atlanta. We've been spending a lot of money, like a lot of the railroads have, really, in terms of improving our intermodal capabilities. We launched 5 major corridors over the past decade. We are putting the finishing touches on those corridors of about $1.2 billion investment. Sort of the granddaddy of them all is what we call the Crescent Corridor, and Atlanta is a critical part of that. And we're doing it really for something that you've heard here today. The conversion of freight from highway to rail is more than a fad. It is a trend, and it is a lasting trend here. What we are trying to do with all of these investments is to create more truck-competitive products to bring more value to the shippers in this country. You can see this here. There's major facilities, but there's also over 100 miles of speed improvements on this 1,000-mile line. We've got a lot of new terminals. This is our new terminal in Albany. We are working on a terminal in Hagerstown, Maryland. This was this summer. It'll be open in November. We're building a huge facility in Birmingham, just south of Birmingham in McClellan. That'll be open in October. And then we have a new facility in Memphis, which will be open in July. And we're pretty excited about all of these facilities that are coming online. These are big investments. They take a lot of time to do. We started working on most of these about half a decade or more ago. And we're not at the end of this process or this journey here. We've taken down real estate in 8 other markets. Last couple of years have been really good years to buy real estate. If you haven't, you probably still have some time to do it. But so we've taken down property in 8 other markets, and we're continuing to look at how we can expand our intermodal offerings. We are also looking at Mexico. You've heard a lot about nearshoring and things like that. We just launched a new service at the end of last year under the brand of TMX between Mexico and the Southeast with the KCS. We'll be expanding those services, and we'll be taking 1 to 2 days of transit time out of that service going forward as we finish up our joint venture work with the Kansas City Southern. And finally, earlier this week, we announced new services with the UP, taking a day out of most of our transit times between California and the Southeast, and we now have a 3.5-day transit time from Atlanta back to the West Coast. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways to make more truck competitive, more reliable, better, faster services for the customers in the Southeast, in Atlanta, and all over the East Coast. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We have Matt Connelly now from UPS. Matt?
Okay, thank you, Parry. As Parry mentioned, my name is Matt Connelly. I've been with UPS for 25 years. And over the course of that 25 years, I've had the privilege to be part of the evolution of our company, going from an historically domestic small package outfit to a global multimodal provider. Today, I'm glad to be on the panel with great suppliers to UPS. All 4 of these companies are strong suppliers that help us provide value to our customers. And today I'm going to go over some high-level capabilities that we have at UPS. I'll talk about market trends that we see through the UPS lens, the customer view, and I'll talk about what type of solutions we're putting together to respond to those market trends and our customer needs. And then lastly, finish it up and talk about two key components to our network, which is truckload and intermodal capabilities. UPS, we're a 100-year-old company, founded in Seattle, Washington. We have some strong asset capabilities in our network, including our UPS airline, which is the 9th largest airline. We're the largest customs broker that supports our international operations, both for our forwarding unit and our small package unit. And also we have 6,400 tractors and 21,000 trailers. Our asset component is supported by 300,000 intermodal moves a year. And we operate in 200 countries worldwide, and we have close to 400,000 employees. As I mentioned before, we've really evolved as a company to be a global multimodal provider. And to do that, we really had to mesh together asset capabilities and non-asset capabilities. I mentioned some of the asset capabilities on the earlier slide. Our non-asset capabilities are purchase of air freight movement globally. Currently, right now, we have about $4 billion of outside purchase transportation with other airlines for our international air freight out of Asia. We also, as mentioned, had 300,000 rail movements a year with key suppliers like CSX and Norfolk Southern. And we have close to $350 million of outside truckload spend in the U.S. alone. And I think Melody Davidson's here. She does the procurement for UPS, so she said she was going to come in and heckle me. So Melody coordinates that for us. But the key component is bridging together our asset capabilities and non-asset capabilities to provide the best value for our customers. We knew back 15 years ago that if we stayed static and were just a small package provider, we'd be commoditized. And so we made the conscious decision to go deeper into our customer's supply chain and look to provide value globally. And you can see some of the offerings that we have, which include ocean freight, international air freight, LTL movement with the acquisition of the overnight LTL outfit 3 years ago, as well as small package that has always been our bedrock. This is our view of the marketplace, and we think this is always very important to understand this and constantly calibrate and adjust it. As big as any company is, we don't set the market. The market sets the market, and that's the customers, the shipper community. And the shipper community continues to become more sophisticated in our opinion. I think technology is a big enabler of that, where our shippers are very cognizant of optimizing their supply chain through mode, based on their manufacturing capabilities, based on their sourcing, and of course based on their customers' demand. Shippers, thank goodness, are looking to outsource more as they go forward so they can focus on their core competency. And shippers are looking for logistics providers who can buffer against variability and risk, who are able to provide multiple modes based on weather contingency, based on disruptions in their supply chain. Can they respond to keep their goods moving? Competition is driving the need to show increased value and improve service capabilities. We look to do that constantly every year. How can we provide improved value to our customers? That usually means either a faster time in transit or reduced cost. A lot of times it means both. And then a logistics provider must leverage multiple transportation modes to offer a portfolio that satisfies diverse customer needs. How we're responding to that? We're responding much more by providing hybrid solutions for our customers that can surge up and down. Customers know their supply chain. They'll look to ship a cheaper mode wherever possible. That's why rail comes in handy, very important for us. Customers also look to make it to market quicker, and that's where expedite truckload comes in handy, as well as air freight movement. So as our customers' supply chain surges and contracts, we look to provide a nimble solution for them at the best value in shifting modes and going from asset and asset light. Lastly, I'll finish up as being a customer to these key suppliers here at their table. We appreciate the value and the benefit of truckload. Werner Truckload, who I think is on the other side of the fence of Matt, provides a great service for us in regards to supporting our e-tailer customer needs. That was touched on in the morning session. E-tailing and e-commerce is here to stay. A lot of those shipping programs that they offer to their customers require expedited truckload movements, and so we have that in our portfolio. We also value what intermodal brings to the table. That includes reduced exposure to fuel, a reduced carbon footprint, and we're real fortunate to be able to blend both those capabilities to satisfy our customers' needs. Thank you, Parry.
Okay, now comes the fun part. We get to put these guys to work answering hard questions. So we'll open it up to the floor. I have some questions prepared as well. One of the questions that I have for the railroads, and I'll let the truckers also respond to this. The move in intermodal appears to have been focused on taking a lot of domestic shipments and turning them into domestic container shipments, and now we're hearing a lot more about trailers. Is there a dramatic change happening in the amount of trailers that you're moving in intermodal versus the amount of domestic containers?
Well, we'll probably actually have different answers here. We've definitely seen a huge reduction over the last 10 years in the amount of trailer movements. I'd say, other than our UPS business, there's just a small fraction of our business today, less than 5%, that is in a trailer. Everything is containerized now. The efficiency benefits of double stack containers just outweighs, in general, some of the expedited nature of the trailer product.
Bill's absolutely right. I mean, the efficiencies of double stacking containers are there, and they're compelling. We have a little bit different view on trailers. We do about 350,000 trailers a year and 350,000 road railers. You saw those pictures up there, and we'll leave road railers to the side. We did 350,000 trailers a decade ago. We did 350,000 last year. We'll probably do 350,000 trailers 10 years from now. I mean, it is an important part of the market. We have very specific trailer services, and we plan to continue to offer those, and in some cases even expand them, particularly for folks who, the truckload guys, as well as the reefer side of things. The reefer container has not really taken off, and if you want to play in the reefer space, I think you have to have a good trailer solution for that.
From the Schneider side, a decade ago we were 100% trailer intermodal, and as of 2009 we're 100% container on flat car. And it's really driven by a couple of reasons. The first thing is we were hard to do business with when we were a combination of trailers and containers for our customers, because there was a period of about 3 or 4 years where we were mixed, and going in and having one equipment type so our customers can just load that same piece of equipment and know what's going on the train is much easier than trying to explain rail routings and different box types to our customers. The comments about the cost efficiencies of double stack container economics, something we felt was important. And the other thing is, from an operational perspective, when we went down to one equipment type, i.e. one container, we were in a position where we just got a ton of dray efficiencies and other things that got us to a lower cost position, which we thought were beneficial.
I guess from a Werner perspective, I tried to spend a little bit of time, because we much like Mike believe that there's a segment of the business from a TOFC that's real and that's been here for a long time and going to continue to be here. We think that the first step for a lot of shippers on conversion is that TOFC, because it feels and acts a lot like truckload in a lot of cases. So we have one trailer pool at many of our shippers, and 3 days a week or 4 days a week, the right mode for that shipment is intermodal. But there are times that expedited loads need to come, and having one trailer pool allows the efficiencies there. Certainly, I think 80% of the business is containerized, and it's going to continue to be a large and growing percentage. But even last year, with 19% of increase in containers to the market, the TOFC product still grew 2%. So there is still a viable and portion of the business that we believe trailer fits in, and it's trying to migrate from that over the road to the container long term that we think is a niche that is going to make sense for that business.
Yeah, from the UPS perspective, we've traditionally been a TOFC type of mode, and that has been primarily driven because we like the flexibility between leveraging the weekend to use slower modes at a cheaper rate versus other days a week. But we understand, what's important to the suppliers. We understand that's where the market's going. We think there's opportunity for us to shift to a higher percentage of container on flat car, and that will give us the ability also to integrate our ocean movements as well, and combine the networks between the traditional TOFC, which has been our small package, with our inbound ocean containers.
Having set up the trailer question, does that open an opportunity for shorter haul intermodal? We hear the numbers bandied about as to what is the optimal distance to move for an intermodal shipment. Is there some efficiency? Are there some operational changes taking place that could allow for shorter hauls in intermodal to be feasible for some shippers?
I'll try to answer the question. I think very clearly the growth of shorter length of haul intermodal is where the marketplace is going. And I think your question is, do you have to be crisper from an operational perspective? Absolutely, because you don't have kind of that I'll call that fluff of increased transit built into the movement to meet a customer's expectations, which means you can run it on a container, you can run it on a trailer, but your operation team needs to really understand the importance of execution once it gets off the train and getting it delivered, and then also getting your next load back on, or getting back to get emptied out of that marketplace. Otherwise, you won't be making money or providing reliable service in that shorter length of haul.
I don't know that the trailer is the driver. I think just the cost model, the growing cost of the truckload solution versus the increasing efficiency of the rail solution is driving down that length of haul. I mean, today you see good growth across the board in intermodal, but you see the majority of the growth, or the real strong growth, taking place in the eastern U.S. So I think that in itself tells you that shorter and shorter hauls are becoming more and more attractive to intermodal.
Okay, questions from the audience? Yes.
Is the narco war going on in Mexico, is that significantly impacting transportation operations that come from there, go to there? I guess it's a general question.
Yeah, for those of you in the back, if you didn't hear, the question is the drug wars in Mexico, does that have an impact on the nearshoring and the operations cross-border between Mexico and the U.S.?
We do a fair amount in Mexico, and what I'll tell you is you have to be aware of what's going on. You need to be conscious of making sure you're keeping your load secure. Several years ago, I'm going to call it 4 years ago, we would run what we called truck rail partial, which meant we went to Laredo on the train, then we ran over the road in Mexico. Right now, we do 100% direct intermodal to Mexican ramp locations, and one of the reasons is because you have that shorter dray distance and greater control of your boxes, and less probability something bad is going to happen to you when you're in Mexico. And so something you need to be aware of, but you can also plan it. If you have a good operations team, you can be successful.
We're just carrying bigger guns now, so it's not. I really don't think it is a very big issue for us.
Is the safety factor having an impact? It sounds like that may be, one aspect of the question, not just the smuggling side, but the safety, keeping you off the out of that market.
We don't have a presence in Mexico, but I got to tell you, I continue to be really surprised by how much economic development activity is going on in Mexico right now. So that's where the businesses are going. That's where the freight is going. And if you want to grow your business, you have to have a Mexico solution, pure and simple.
From a safety standpoint, for Schneider, we have our general manager that's got country operations, lives in Mexico City. All of our Mexican team lives in Mexico, and again, you need to be careful, just cautious from a security standpoint. But if you're going to be successful in the marketplace, you need to have people on the ground in country that understand how the marketplace is operating and respond to the challenges that might be out there.
I think we'd echo that. We're, much like Schneider, a very large provider in Mexico, and boots on the ground, the partnerships with the right players in Mexico. You have to be cognizant of the fact that it's so fast growing that you need to be involved in part of the solution. There are security and challenges, but you can plan, I think, for those and put safety or safe measures in place to deal with most of that. But it's a large part of our growth plan.
Yeah, we're investing in Mexico as well. This week, as a matter of fact, we have a jet landing in McClellan, Texas, to service the cross-border, and next month we're upsizing our air capabilities into Guadalajara. So that's from an air component, but from a surface component too, we think there's value with having more investment from a UPS perspective in regards to hitting key nodes from Mexico to the upper Midwest and target key trade lanes and corridors.
The issues in and out of Mexico, well, particularly out of Mexico, are pretty complex. I saw in one presentation, I believe the number was 106 different steps to move from Mexico into the U.S. because of that cross-border by truck. By rail, it's a lot more streamlined. And we recently signed the agreement that now allows Mexican truckers under the NAFTA agreement. It was designed to allow Mexican truckers to operate in the U.S., to make deliveries and do pickups. No cabotage. They can't operate U.S. to U.S. with moves. And that's been, fought ever since NAFTA was signed. We've now signed that agreement, and there are 3 Mexican motor carriers approved and 3 trucks approved. So there's not a lot of push, even on the Mexican carrier side, to get into this market and do long haul up into the U.S. Yes, back here.
Bill, Mike, any new intermodal markets or cities that you see on the horizon?
Well, I mentioned in the presentation that, the most difficult thing to do for a railroad is move into a city. You either have a rail line in there or you don't. But in Montreal, we have a rail line that frankly we were considering abandoning. It's difficult to maintain, and as it turns out, we had some property up there, so we're going to be opening up, I think, a very nice facility in Montreal. Again, a very, very big market. Otherwise, you could reach it through other rail carriers, and you could have double or more than one railroad involved. Other than that, recently we opened up a facility in Chambersburg. We opened up a small facility here in Bessemer to serve the Birmingham market. We'll continue to match my counterpart over here. Opening up a facility in Pittsburgh. We have a slight hole in our network there. We'll open up a facility eventually in Pittsburgh. And recently, we just, last month, opened up a new facility in Louisville, or Louisville, as some people.
Yes.
What are some of the programs and initiatives you guys have implemented in your terminals to process the growth of container traffic for your terminals?
Well, a lot of different things. If you went back 10 years, we tried to keep everything that we could on wheels just because it was easier to get on and off terminals, et cetera. But the one thing that is difficult to replicate is the land that is required as we grow our business. So we have gone more and more to completely grounded operations. When we started down that path, it seemed like it was going to be incredibly inefficient. There were going to be a lot of problems. Now we actually prefer to move more and more in that direction. It allows us to operate very efficiently and kind of in a very controlled environment on our terminals. You've seen more and more technology used to help our trucking partners get on and off our facilities quicker and more efficiently. So I think between that, the terminal operating systems, you'll just continue to see intermodal evolve to handle the growth in the terminal area.
I think the the metric we look at is what is the cycle time of a drayman for a drop and a pick, and when we started measuring that in 03 or 04, it was like 45, 50 minutes or something like that. And when you start measuring things and you start putting in the technology and the processes that Bill mentioned there, you can take it down. So we took out took it down about 22 minutes for a drop and a pick. And if you think about our gate moves, that's about 6 million minutes that we took out of the that we've taken out of the intermodal supply chain. I think there's a physics thing. I mean, eventually it could maybe go down to 20 minutes or 18 minutes or something like that. But we're always focused on cycle times and the productivity there.
In that same line, the container chassis market is changing drastically. Maersk just sold off their chassis business, and many of the other lines have given up their pools. Is that going to improve, or is this a problem?
For those in the back, the question is the chassis availability and the changing landscape in that market.
I mean, one thing we found is if you don't have a chassis under a box, sparks come out when you move it. The fact of the matter is the market is very dynamic. It's changing, and I think all the railroads would say we're going to follow those changes, and we're going to do what's required to meet the needs of the market.
For the motor carriers, apparently your market approach is to invest in that as part of your fleet. Do you see a challenge on the horizon for motor carriers as the length of haul for those chassis becomes more than just a dray move, for instance? Is that going to put pressure on the chassis supply in the country?
We use tracking to kind of a shared chassis pool arrangement, and for us, we're quite a bit to forecast where our needs are, and track does a pretty good job of meeting them. You're right. The further out you go, the more chassis time you're going to burn up, and that's one of the reasons that from our standpoint, we always try to make sure we're not having overlap between different ramps. Where you have chassis getting kind of mixed up, because that's a cost for both us and track. But long length haul is okay as long as you sit there and control your operations and don't lose the equipment further out away from the ramp.
So you own your chassis?
No, we lease them right now.
Same over everybody?
Same for us, and I think we believe from an efficiency standpoint that if the intermodal provider community all started bringing our own chassis to the game, that would create congestion and challenges at the rail yard that just aren't realistic. So finding the great provider, the provider that we can lease from and supply for everybody is what that evolution will continue from our perspective.
That obviously helps in balancing the supply. We heard this morning a discussion of a question of moving empty containers for international containers. Do you have a similar problem with the networks in moving a lot of empty domestic containers in the intermodal networks?
I wouldn't call it a problem. I would call it a reality. You have markets which are imbalanced, and what we care about is equipment velocity. And if you move into a place like the Northeast, there's more loads in than out. And the sooner you realize that and figure out what percentage you have to ship out, make the call to empty and empty them right away. Obviously, you want to get back hauls as you can, but there's some markets that it's just going to be physically impossible to become balanced.
I think that's a reality whether you're on containers or trailers. The reality is you have to create a balance, and empty moves are a necessity, and so you minimize as much as you can, but you make the decision to move them and move them back to a head haul market.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned before we need to understand where the market's going and our suppliers are going, because we feel there's opportunity moving small package from the inland port back to the port positioning area, where we can create that head haul with the ocean container movement and the back haul loading it up with small package on the container. So that's why we're looking to understand where the market's going constantly and leverage that round trip movement to a higher degree to offset that wasted movement back.
Matt, I think you talked about planning for the shift to intermodal. Do the rest of you also take that kind of approach of working with shippers and consignees to plan on shifting more, and what types of things are involved in putting those processes in place?
Yeah, I think we're all planning for intermodal growth, and Bill talked about it earlier. I mean, the railroads are more engaged with the beneficial cargo owners, I think, than they've ever been, and we're having those conversations along with the channel partners. How do you really supercharge this conversion effort? There are a lot of BCOs out there. They want to do it. There's value. There's green. There's all those things. There's capacity. And I think we're all having some very engaging discussions with them on how to bring more and more freight over to the rails, and very constructive.
Yeah, I'd just add, I mean, I think the important thing here is you can't just dabble in intermodal. I mean, it really is a commitment. You just don't move a few of your loads intermodal. You pick out a segment of your business that's moving over the highway and say, okay, I'm going to intermodalize this. And so you get intermodal expertise in-house if you're a shipper, et cetera. You just can't. You know, it's frankly just not as easy to move into intermodal as it is to truck, but once you're in, then it's just as easy as moving a truckload.
One add I'd throw out from a planning standpoint is Schneider obviously has a lot of trucks in addition to intermodal, and you know, we're going to look to find the best mode for a customer to be able to ship the product, preferably on Schneider. And if there's a great intermodal solution, we're going to certainly try to point that out via the data set. If truck's the right option, we're going to point that out also.
And I would say that probably now more than ever, there's more collaboration from the railroads and the truckers on working with the customer, open to both parties engaged in the process of finding that right fit and mix. So I think it's really continued to migrate away from the perspective of the railroads going through the channel partners and not knowing what the customers really want. And having that visibility, and now the integration of the two of us calling on the customers oftentimes together creates a lot more visibility and a more strategic approach to that conversion.
I think we heard that collaborative attitude in the support for the driver shortage.
Yeah.
First positive thing I ever heard a railroader say about the trucking industry. Yes.
Along the lines of talking directly with beneficial cargo owners, do you feel like the railroads at some point are going to go back into direct retail?
The question is, will
I'm going to let Mike take that one.
Go back into direct retail?
Well, we got to go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I wanted to repeat the question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, our view. I mean, we have a retail provider. We retail about 400,000 loads a year of our 3.whatever million loads we have. So it's there. But I got to tell you, I mean, the value of wholesaling is that we have 150 to 200 channel providers out there selling for us. If we only had one or two, we'd retail, right? I mean, the reason you wholesale something is to get greater market coverage. And so as long as that holds true, I think that, that wholesaling largely is the way to go. We're going to keep a retail presence. It's good. Makes us better suppliers. But wholesaling has a lot of merit because of the number of channels that are out there. Was that politically correct?
No, that was good. We're committed to the wholesale channel. It's simple. I mean, we get the broadest coverage. We have great partners. And I think, to my point earlier, it's not that we're not competing with truckload carriers to shift business off the highway, but both the railroads represented up here, our biggest partners are the truckload carriers. So we're kind of working in parallel to make the conversion.
One other thing I'd like to say, at the end of the day, railroads retail. I mean, the only segment of railroading that's not retail is intermodal. I mean, coal and boxcar and tank car, that's all retail. So, I mean, that's largely what we do.
It also sounds like the intermodal marketing companies play a vital role in filling those backhauls, those empty containers that are floating around there in the system as well. Yes, back here. Transit time variability is the issue.
Well, I mean, from CSX's view, it is our singular focus is to be more reliable. And frankly, even at the cost of speed, what we found ultimately our shippers want is a consistent, reliable service. It's nice if it's a day faster, but it's not a game changer to be a day faster. So all of our operating processes, our entire team at CSX is focused on that single issue, because if we can get more and more reliable, let's say in the mid 90 percentile, we think, again, there's a vast opportunity for conversion out there.
I guess from a customer's perspective to these suppliers is we constantly look to understand their time and transit capabilities, and when we have the opportunity over the weekend or over holidays to downshift from air to expedited team truckload movements, we do that, or from expedited truckload movements to rail over the weekend. So we constantly like to understand and work with our suppliers to understand their time in transits and then shift per day a week based on our service commitment to our customers.
And I guess from our perspective, we always ride the UPS train because it's always on time.
The one thing I throw out from the transit standpoint is usually, what we'll give you is what we'll call internally a padded schedule. And what that means is we'll give you, based upon all the days a week in the combination, this is what the transit is. If transit becomes a concern, we can talk about the specific days of the week that if you shipped on, you would have better transit. And I think that's really, as you get better with intermodal, just understanding the nuances. If you're running, not, a limited number of train starts throughout the week, which days give you the better transit, and then being able to build that into your planning process.
What I'm going to say, if you have the right channel provider, it shouldn't be an issue. Your channel provider should know what the capabilities of the railroads are in any particular lane, and on those days when something happens, it snows or rains, or something happens, they should let you know. I mean, we're hearing that concern less and less. We know it's a concern, but good channel providers can really help take a lot of that out.
One of the comments I heard in your presentations was about the focus on driver time and the interface between the driver and shipper and consignee. Is there a significant operations issue at that interface when you're dealing with intermodal versus conventional truckload?
I think there probably used to be. I think everybody's made great strides in reducing those cycle times at the terminals. I think probably the bigger driver issue is probably still at the customers in terms of cycling drivers in and out of facilities, of warehouses and plants.
Yeah, the shipper and consignee facilities are an issue. Does motor carriers have rebuttal to that?
No, I think cycle time, whether it's at the customer or the railroads, terminals, is a real opportunity to continue to focus our attention. And it's probably not going to get any better with hours of service changing and the start and stops. There's going to continue to be more and more pressure on trying to eliminate the bottlenecks and make it flow. So I think whether we're sitting up here as a motor carrier, we'd ask both the railroads and our customers to do their part to try to help facilitate keeping those trucks moving, because whether it's intermodal or not, a truck's the one that gets it to the customer.
I think it's I don't see it as a big issue. It's something that we continually work on. I'll tell you where it is an issue, though. It's in our nation's ports. Getting on and off these port facilities is just ridiculous. And it's different throughout the country, but there's an area that needs continual improvement, because you can't spend 3 or 4 hours making a move on and off a port.
I'm glad you brought up ports. The Port of Savannah, both of the railroads here have operations on port at the Port of Savannah. The port is preparing for bigger ships, a lot more container throughput. How do you cope with that?
How do we cope with it?
Yeah.
We just get the freight, man. Well, I will say this about here in Georgia. Georgia's got it right. They've really got this figured out. From the governor down to the dock worker, they've got total alignment about what they're trying to achieve in Savannah and Brunswick. But from the container side, Savannah, they've got dual rail access. They've got a major market that's far enough inland. I'd like to move Atlanta another 100 miles west if I could, but it's in a good spot. And so I do think, though, that this dredging, and there seems to be growing support to make that happen, you know, that is the next big step for the Port of Savannah.
There's a lot of inherent capacity on the probably both railroads in terms of moving freight inland there. I mean, we run 4 trains a day. We average about 8,000 foot a train, and we could probably, you know, add a lot more trains to support the port there. And there's a lot of room. The port has done a really nice job strategically of ensuring that I think both railroads have the land capacity you need to move between the port and the rails.
Yeah, we heard a lot about the focus on dredging, and you know, that's the water side. I wanted to make sure that you know, we were hearing that the operations on the land side are getting equal attention. Some other questions out here?
We're losing them, Parry.
Okay, I think we're right at the time for wrap up to head for the next session, which is the lunch keynote presentation. That will start back in the main ballroom, right? So you get to do that long haul move in reverse again. Thank you, everybody.